all eyes fixed on Perth, Western Australia for the UFC 284 main event. Islam Makhachev makes the first defense of his UFC lightweight championship against featherweight champ, reigning pound-for-pound king, Alexander Volkanovski. Laura, the importance of this for the sport, for the organization of the UFC, to have 1 versus 2 meet in the octagon.
Listen, this is huge. This is the Halley's Comet of MMA. If you don't watch it now, it's never going to happen again in your generation. Number 1 versus number 2, as you said, Anthony, in their primes. And not just that, 2 of the deepest weight classes in the entire UFC. Alexander Volkanovski striving for greatness. I mean, so much to this fight and so much on the line. This is for all the chips.
I think this sets the UFC apart from other sports and from other organizations. Dana White has said it time and time again that the best fight the best in the UFC, and this is just an overarching example of that. And like Laura pointed out, in the 2 of the deepest weight classes, these guys have already gone through some of the toughest guys in the world, and instead of trying to go back and doing it again, they're looking for bigger challenges. I think that embodies what the UFC brings to the table.
And Alexander Volkanovski's persona and really his fan base has just swelled because he's been chasing this challenge, Anthony. This is huge for him if he can pull this off.
Oh, it's absolutely huge. And when you want big fights, when we're talking blockbuster events, there has to be a little bit of uncertainty. And I think that that's one thing that Alexander Volkanovski has been missing. It's not been uncertain if he's going to be able to defend his title. It's been a fairly certain thing that he's probably going to win his next fight. It's the first time in a long time, at least in most memorable times, that we don't know if Alexander Volkanovski can get this win.
I talked to Alex the day that this fight was announced, actually, and he looked me straight in the eye and he said, I have never been more motivated for a fight. And it was wild because you could just see the energy coming off of him in that moment. He is reaching for greatness. He wants to be Alexander the Greatest, not just Alexander the Great, and this is the moment to do it.
A big-time chip on his shoulder. What's the legacy impact for Volkanovski or Islam Makhachev?
I think the legacy impact is huge, especially with Islam, trying to step out of the shadow of Khabib. I think that trying to get out of that Khabib's little brother kind of mentality I think everyone has, he's doing something that Khabib never did. He's challenging someone else in a different weight class. He's taking super fights. Khabib was very stuck in his ways about defending his title and staying in his weight class and not really getting out of his lane. I think that is the biggest difference for Islam for sure.
Yeah, this is a huge moment for Islam to really step into himself and become his own fighter and no longer be, as you say, Anthony, in that shadow of Khabib. But for Volkanovski, I mean, this is a chance to cement his legacy in stone. He's already talking about welterweight.
Well, the numbers on these 2 athletes are just insane heading into this fight. They're the top 2 in UFC active win streaks. 12 for Alexander Volkanovski, 11 straight for Islam Makhachev, who can, of course, join him if he were to dethrone him. And then you see the other numbers. Title fight wins for Alexander Volkanovski is starting to rapidly increase. Alexander Volkanovski, 5'6". He's always going to be the shorter fighter. Crazy long reach. Anthony, what do you notice when you look at the roadmap for how we were to win this fight?
There's so many things that he does very, very well. What stands out to me is the way that he strikes. He gives the illusion that he's false starting a lot. He gets you to throw back at him, uses his angles to get you to throw and get out of the way, and then he starts striking. So he'll step really, really deep with his left foot, and he'll start to strike. Once you realize that he's striking at you, you want to counter. Max Holloway's always going to throw back when he throws. Once Max started to throw back, Alexander Volkanovski was out of the way. So he's always kind of striking in an L. He's straight in, strikes, hits an angle, waits for your counter, and then he goes again. So he's never just coming in with one attack. It's always multiple attacks. The times that he's kind of gotten himself into trouble with Max Holloway specifically, and I use that example a lot because Max Holloway and Islam are very similar in sizes, maybe not so much in reach and the way that they fight, but their sizes. There's a few times he did step in, didn't hit his angle, and then that's when he got himself into trouble with Holloway a little bit. I don't suspect he's going to do that a lot here because Max Holloway and Islam are much different strikers. I don't think he's going to have to go as deep into maybe his bag of tricks striking with Islam.
Perhaps the X factor is Alexander Volkanovski and the challenge of holding him down. Those short little legs sometimes help him pop right back up. But Laura, on the other side, Islam Makhachev, he's that football team that says, we're going to run it right there, and I dare you to stop it. His wrestling is just the calling card.
Yeah, the Dagestani wrestling is a breed in and of itself, and it's for a couple of reasons. First, culturally, they're putting their kids in wrestling and Sambo when we're putting our kids in soccer. But mechanically, they are so good at controlling multiple parts of the body at the same time. So when you watch Islam fight, you got to look for his grips. When he took on Charles Oliveira, you can see here he's got this really deep overhook clamped on there. That's going to allow him to control the posture of Oliveira. And then take a look here. He's got the wrist control. Might be a little bit of a glove grab, but that's a vet move. We're okay with that. And then, of course, he's going to attack the hips with this beautiful Haraya-goshi, one of his favorite takedowns. And the way that he does it lands beautifully right in top half, exactly where he wants to be. And then here against Dan Hooker, anticipates the kick of Dan Hooker, already knows where he wants to put him, attacks the legs right away, and I love this right here. Dan Hooker using that left arm as a post. Islam sees it. He says, no, not today, Dan, and immediately gets on that so quickly, and then, of course, goes to attacking the legs. It's all about controlling more than one body part at the same time.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.